Hi, everyone. Welcome to VCTV, another episode of VCTV. As we all know, VCTV stands for the Venture Capital TV and is from La Token. The whole objective and the goal of VCTV is to connect startups and founders to investors like yourself because startups are in need of help because of the pandemic. I mean, things have just become gone out of control, and the startups are the one who drive economies, and startups are the one who needs to be helped, especially with funding, mentoring, all sorts of help. So today's panel is again interesting as we cover different topics every day, Monday to Friday. Today we have a topic to discuss on augmented reality and virtual reality and the investments around it. So again, today I have a very diversified panel as well from Asia, Asia, US, and whatnot, and Europe as well. So it's about investments in AR and VR. Before I start with the speakers of the evening, I would like to introduce myself a bit so that the viewers know who I am. So I host these shows Monday to Friday. I'm the regional director of La Token, and my name is Sunny Mohanty, and I'm based in Singapore. Excellent. So I think we have all the speakers now in our panel. Hi, everyone. How's everybody doing, first of all? Hey, Louis, welcome back. Hi, Sergey. Hi, Guhesh, welcome back. Hi, Urvi, how are you? Great, awesome. So I'd like to start from Asia because we have two people dialing in from Asia and two from US and one from Europe. So I'd like to start with Guhesh first, who's been on our shows before. And I'd like to start with you, Guhesh. Hi, welcome to VCTV. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Great. I'm really excited to have you back on our show. Let's start with a short introduction about yourself and the company you represent. Then we go to other speakers. Then we take the questions. Thank you. Floor's all yours. Thank you.
So I run a company called Excubator, which is based out of Bangalore. I actually run two organizations, and I'll tell you about both of them. Excubator is a company where we connect great quality startups with what we call markets and money. Essentially, we focus upon how is it that we can take certain startups to potential customers, large customers. We work with startups from around the world. We work with startups from Korea. We work with startups from Israel, Germany, India, multiple locations at this point in time. And we connect them to potential opportunities with multiple large global enterprises, including companies as big as, say, Maersk, or say Bosch, or say Intel, or Nvidia, or Target, or any of these such opportunities. That's one side of the thing. I also run a small fund called C Fund. I'm partner in the fund. We have made certain investments. We are in the process of raising our second fund.
Excellent. So Guhesh, you are global in terms of investments when it comes to startups. Excellent. Thanks for that introduction, Guhesh, and welcome to VCTV again.
Thank you.
So next we have a new speaker from India. Urvi, are you connected well enough to be able to speak and introduce yourself? Okay, I don't think Urvi is here still, so let's move to Europe. We have Sergey, who is joined from Europe for the first time on my panel. He was on previous panels, on the US panels. Hi, Sergey. Welcome to VCTV. How are you today?
Hi, Sunny. Hi. Thank you for invitation. I'm fine. Sorry if there might be any background sounds because I just had a meeting in the restaurant, and being apart from the office or apartment, it's hard to find a quiet place to speak. But it's a great setup. So it's like a tea shop. So I'm enjoying the tea. So it's like a VCTV party. Okay, so. Yeah, everything goes fine. So a bit about myself. I'm a managing partner of Infosys Capital Partners. We are a boutique venture and consulting company based currently. We have offices in Singapore, Bangkok, and Hong Kong. And yeah, so we are currently working with high net worth individuals of more than $1 billion US, and we source the right startup deals to them. So we have couple of interests in gaming, in work tech, in remote tech, and actually we have some new things we're going to announce, I think. And we're also working currently on raising our fund in Luxembourg of 50 million euros.
Wow, that's quite an intro. Thank you, Sergey. And you're basically global, if I understand. You cover Europe.
Yes, that's why I'm currently in Europe. So moving across the countries as pandemic, what it may allow the movements, right? So my partners are in Bangkok currently. So I moved to Europe, and we also working because one of our partners, Michael Bates, is a US citizen. He's great experience both in Japan, or he knows Japanese language, and great experience in US market. So we kind of cover the whole, 3 global markets: US, Europe, and Southeast Asia.
Wow, excellent. Startups, those who are watching us today, Sergey covers all the regions, all the geographies. Welcome, Sergey.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
So I think my friend Urvi, are you still there? Okay.
Yeah, hi.
Hey,
Right.
welcome back, Urvi. We can't still see you. We can hear
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I think my video is going to be a while now because I'm still not on optimum connectivity yet. Uh, let's hope it happens before before the session ends at least.
Okay, I'll
Right.
come to you later when your connection is more
Yeah.
stable. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for hanging in there.
I think you'll have to mute me again because I don't know if there's going to be background noise or not.
Okay, Carol, please mute Urvi. Thank you. Okay, the next two speakers I have, I'm going to far way west. I'm going to go from Asia far east to west. I'm going to start with Gary first. Hi, Gary. Welcome back to VCTV.
Hello, how are you today?
I am great. Thank you. How are you today?
I'm great. Now that I got my other notebook up and running.
Oh, yeah, much more clearer. And the background is different today.
Yeah,
Gary,
hard to believe that's a new MacBook and this is an old one.
Oh, the old one works better than the new one. Wow.
Yeah, it's hard to believe,
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, that's technology. We can't, sometimes we don't have too much control on that. So Gary, for those who may not know you, so just quick introduction about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Gary Fowler and I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been involved or co-founded 2 unicorns and done 15 companies. My last company, in fact, Sergey may know David Yang. He's my partner in EVA. We started that together and also a little investment, moderate investment fund. So I love artificial intelligence. I've written 80 articles in AI. I have a show that I do every 2 weeks. I have people like Guy Kawasaki, top people in electric vehicles, soon to be announced. So a lot of really interesting people. And some on this call. And so I just love it. I love artificial intelligence because AI is a new electricity. I have a company called GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios. We curate the best AI companies in the world. So whether it's work tech or fintech, et cetera, we curate them. And our idea is to use Silicon Valley as a port to the rest of the world to go global because half the money in the world is still located there. So that's what we do. And I've done IPOs on NASDAQ. I've done a lot of different things, but I love technology.
Yeah, of course, I've actually myself seen your sessions on the US sessions, and I love them. I mean, you are the AI man, to be honest. Welcome, Gary, again.
Thank you.
Next, we would like to move to Lewis. Hey, Lewis, welcome back. How are you today?
How you doing? I have to follow Sergey, and Gary should have put me first. I gotta follow Mr. Forbes now. In any event, just the skinny on me. I've been in finance for over 25 years, over a quarter century. Been in technology a lot longer than that. Involved in AI, AR, VR, blockchain, and pretty much anything technology. And we're global, so we get involved in a lot of different things, and we're building a nice ecosystem and technology that we'll have some announcements coming out soon enough. But this topic today is going to be interesting, and I know Gary has a lot to say, but I have a few things to throw in there as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've heard Gary, I've heard you talking. I mean, you guys have so much insights, be it on this topic or fintech, blockchain in general. So I'm also excited to just hear from you guys today. So basically, we are set with introductions minus Urvi, who is just still having technical issues. I guess we can't see her yet. So let's start with the panel. So with physical interactions limited by COVID-19 pandemic, companies increasingly turning to virtual and augmented reality technology as part of their digital transformation efforts. Interactions through avatars and sensory experiences were already happening in a big scale, but with COVID-19 pandemic, all those have been accelerated fast forward 10 years. So let's talk about what's happening, the trends, current trends and investments in AR and VR. Guhesh, would you like to share some insights from your perspective? You're also global because, as you rightly mentioned, you not only invest in India, but you invest globally, Israel, Europe, and everything. So as per you, so we are nearly end of 2020. What's happening? What has changed since the beginning of 2020 and up until now?
Interestingly, this has been my experience in terms of AR and VR as a technology, primarily to help workforces meet at this point in time. AR and VR primarily have been used, in the past. I mean, if you look pre-COVID days, primarily have been used in areas like, say, gaming or whatever other more of entertainment rather than anything else, right? But real workforce enablement has not started happening yet. It's interesting that in India, we have, I think at this point in time, 170 plus companies that are exclusively focused upon AR and VR. But very few of them are actually focusing upon how augmented reality could actually be used to make meetings like this a lot more productive, right? That's the first one.
Right.
I've probably come across just one company in India right now, company called Imaginate. I don't know how many of you would have heard of this. That is actually working on stuff like this. Again, in terms of investments, if you look at the investments that have happened in India right now, there have just been 2 investments that have happened in the AR VR space in 2020. Okay, just 2.
Right.
Perhaps it's an indication. I'd love to hear from the rest of the panel on what they have seen in other countries. In Korea, actually, this is something that we have seen, not so much in terms of communication technology, which is being augmented by AR or VR, but it's more to do with things like, say, for example, entertainment, which is taking on a lot more importance in Korea. That's something that we have seen. Israel has always been a more of cybersecurity, health tech kind of a thing. I have not seen too much of action that's happening in Israel as far as the AR VR use cases are concerned. But I'd love to hear from folks in Switzerland. I'd love to hear from folks in the US on what they see as trends, especially in the area that you were talking about.
Yeah. So, sorry, before I move to, because Luis and Gary has a lot of insights to share, you just said that just 2 investments, 2 companies in India. So
in
can
2020.
2020, yeah. What are those companies? Could you please name them and what they do?
Let me just think.
Or maybe it's okay. We'll come back to you while you think. It's okay.
No, so there's one company called Style.me, and there's another company called some QQ Experience or something like that. But of course,
Right.
the big one that has happened was last year in this company called Play Shifu. That raised roughly about $7 million in 2019.
Right.
The others, the investments that have happened this year are actually quite small. I mean, there's one that's raised about both of the one that's raised roughly about $500,000, another one that's raised about $1 million. That's about it this year.
Right. Okay, great. With continuation with just what Guhesh mentioned, I just want to say with regards to events, with the large gatherings being off the table, as we all know, we don't have any more large gatherings. Virtual events are in here to stay. As more consumers come down to VR headsets, we are probably going to see more events transitioning over to VR spaces. Anybody would like to take this talk about VR? Gary?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the situation, look how our lives have changed, Sunny.
Yeah.
Look in the last 7 months. So imagine there are over 400 million active participants in Zoom every day. Our lives have digitally transformed, and VR gets us closer. So think about education and the experiences. You know, children are now, college students are now locked up in their homes. They're not able to get in different parts of the world at different times. I mean, at lockdown, open up, lockdown. So VR gives us an opportunity. VR and AR, imagine the incredible uses. There's a technique in psychology called systematic desensitization. So if you're afraid of dogs, you learn how to be desensitized to dogs. It's being used. So VR is being used in that kind of environment. So to be able to train a person to not be afraid of dogs, it's being used in things like autism. But it's the world, now you combine 5G, where you've got incredible throughput, the world dramatically shifts. So VR can be used in education, VR can be used in training. It's a world of opportunities. And if we looked at it a year ago, it was a little bit slow. In fact, McKinsey said 92% of the companies were thinking about a digital transformation and moving, digitally. But now with the pandemic forward, everything has shifted. This is the greatest time that we've seen for technologies to come out. Think about it. We have to use them. It's not like 9 months ago or a year ago we said, oh, I don't know. Zoom is now like Xerox, right? We used to say Xerox. Now it's Zoom. I remember almost 6 years ago when I was asked by one of the VCs of Zoom, did I want to try Zoom? My friends, I would send a link. I was one of the first customers, send a link out. My friends didn't want to do it. I don't know. Is this some kind of scam? Why do I have to download this thing? Blah, blah, blah. Now look at it. In fact, I wrote Eric about 3 weeks ago. I was like, it's kooky, It's so that's how our lives have shifted. So virtual reality, XR, AR, VR, it's now part of what we have to do because we need to be hyper-personalized. We need to become part of those experiences. Imagine how rich an experience is. So kids in Moscow, kids in Mumbai, Singapore, and being able to travel to Africa, really travel to Africa to feel what it's like. So now I wrote an article in Forbes called Nikola Tesla's Dream Comes True, the democratization of opportunities. VR is one of the ways that that's happening today.
Absolutely. Totally agree. I mean, Zoom, to be honest, I never used Zoom before 2020. It was
At least you're honest because, people won't admit it now. It's funny. I used to, why would I want to use Zoom? I can use Skype or Google. Why do I need all these things? Now the situation is, even if they're doing a Skype call, they call it Zoom.
Right. Thanks, Gary. Go ahead. Please go on.
So the just to add to what Gary is saying, I've heard people saying, can we do a Zoom call on Skype? Can we do a Zoom call on Microsoft Teams? Right? I mean, Zoom has
I told you, I'm not the only one that's hearing that stuff. It's kind of kooky,
It's absolutely crazy. But just to add to what Gary was talking about, one of the companies that I was advising maybe about 6 years ago. Okay, and this is interesting. This is the time of Skype. Zoom perhaps did not even feature in many places. How many of you have heard of a product company called Livescribe? Right? Livescribe is essentially it's a pen and paper based thing. You have a USB based pen, which is a smart pen, which you write on a microgrid. You make notes over there, and then you're able to transcribe that entire thing into a set of notes that you can dump directly onto your computer. That's one of the things over there. Someone from India actually used that particular technology to literally create a product called One Click Street. This is one of the first HTML5 based conferencing video platforms that was there from India. And I remember telling him, saying that, look, you are way ahead of time. You are way ahead of time. This is not going to take off for the next few years, primarily because, the reality was very different those days. I mean, people would still meet and people would say, hey, you know what, why don't we just meet up at a coffee shop and talk, that kind of stuff, rather than, try and do something over, a virtual web conference like this. The sad part was the company got acquired maybe about 4 years ago for literally a pittance. I mean, I think they acquired it for about 2 million. This is a company which I think was on the cutting edge of stuff 5, 6 years ago. Okay, and I remember today thinking about it, saying that, just before we got into this conference, I was slapping my head saying that, look, had Rishikesh, the founder of that company, been able to stick around with that product, it got acquired by Freshworks. So that's the story over there.
Yeah, he would have just minted millions now. Guesh, my memory of video conferencing goes back to a corporate life where we used to go to a small, a very cool, locked up room where there's a big TV, like a television inside, and then you get connected to other person on the other side of the. My memory goes back that far, like the teleconferences that I used to have before. I just had to add to that, Kuhesh. Thank you so much. Next, do we have Urvi here? I don't see her there. So let's go to Louis. Hi, Louis. So I'm sure you have a lot to share as well with when you say AR.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into VR. I feel that we're a little bit far away from that, but with the implementation of 5G, it'll come quicker. I'll leave that for Gary to comment on. AR is more immediate. We use AR every day. We don't even know it. It's the stuff that just is implemented on certain programs, and even when you put a little thumbs up, you have the faces on, whether it be on on Instagram, or if you're using Snapchat and things like that. Augmented reality is part of our lives right now, and people don't even know it.
Right.
With that Pokemon Go, that was a big thing globally, but that was on such an elementary level that there are more advanced things that are taking place. AR, that utilization in learning is paramount, whether it's in school, whether it's for business, manufacturing. If you're trying to teach someone to be a surgeon, students can actually do this on their own time in school. They can learn how to do things right before they actually have to physically do it, on a person, or whether it's a mechanic working on an engine. And it's cost effective, and it saves time, so it makes it easier, more cost effective for people to do it. If you look at Apple and Google, they're pioneering this. So people think that AR is the end, the end platform. That is it. Yeah, that's what you see. The user interfaces. That's what you see. On the back end, AI is the driving force of all of this. Okay, Apple and Google and other companies, they're providing software development kits for this, so that it allows people easily, and Amazon's doing it as well. It allows people easily to create these platforms. The problem is you're married to these platforms for the duration, because if you try to move things over, you have a problem. You need them because they're the core of what you're doing. And we're gonna, AR is gonna be utilized at some point, and it's being utilized now in shopping, and other things like that. And we're gonna see more of that, like even on a web conferencing call. Okay, we're gonna advance to having real life avatars, instead of us having to be here, to make it more interesting, so you can walk
Yeah.
around and your avatar is actually speaking. So all this stuff is coming to pass, and with the implementation of 5G, a lot of opportunities are going to open up. You're going to have a lot of companies, coming out, a lot of entrepreneurs coming out with these great ideas. But one thing that Google is doing with Chrome, and I mentioned Google because they're doing all this stuff, don't like the privacy part of it. And that's something that they're taking up in the United States, on the Hill, as we speak. But Google, with their Chrome,
Yeah.
they're going to have it support AR for web-based applications, and that's going to be very interesting. That's coming forth. But I'll pass the ball over to Sergey, so I'm sure he has things to say.
Wow, excellent. Thank you, Louis, for sharing those. And Gary just shared a link, which I'm going to publish on our website later. Thanks, Gary, for that. Sergey, over to
Yep.
you now. So what are the trends in AR, VR, besides gaming? I mean, AR, VR sort of get associated with gaming, but as Louis and Gary said, education, events, conferences, it can be used at various, there can be many more use cases to that. So what do you see from your perspective?
Okay. our investment vision on AR VR that we've seen is like the most, it is the common mistakes that we've seen, that entrepreneurs see AR VR as a, as already a product, which is not. It's a technology. And they kind of forget that the industry they're working in is not AR VR, because when they pinpoint and saying we have a VR startup, then every investor will just look at the VR size of the market, or gaming VR sets, and it's very small. So if you present kind of VR AR project, it needs to be, let's say it's a medtech AR boosted, then it's a different talk, right? Then AR or VR is just a tool that you use that you think is best for your startup. So in this case, AR VR, I think, was long time seen as a, some kind of a magic bullet. So they say AR and everyone was like interested. But if you see right now, like I said, purely AR VR companies are not that highly valued. So you need to understand better what kind of a market you're working in. Is it like esports? How AR helps you? Yeah, as was rightfully said. I mean, we have AR already in our real life. Look at the Gary's background, right? So that's already some sort of AR, right? So that's augmented reality, and we kind of use it often. But if we look at these things, it's kind of hard to pinpoint them to a final product. So our vision is if entrepreneurs want to get a higher valuations, then they need to have a real product that targets other industry than just AR, VR. That's our vision.
Great.
If I can add on to that real quick, I just want to, Sergey made a good point on the tools. AR as a tool, as an add-on to other things, is going to be key, because AR within itself is going to be hard to go in and really have that growth, but to be added on to something else, it makes it more powerful. It makes it more valuable. And I just want to say, good point, Sergey.
Absolutely, Louis. Thanks for that. So, Sergey, just want to ask you one quick question. You mentioned that obviously startups should focus on their product first because AR, VR tools. So, what stage do you invest in? What stage?
We invest in very early stages, even when the company is not even MVP ready. And we invest up to Series A.
Right. Okay.
So the pre-seed seed is mostly focus. We can invest up to Series A, but this will be mostly follow-up investments. So mostly early stage investments.
Early stage. Excellent. Thank you. Startups, Sergey, is in early stage investments.
You're welcome to connect.
Thanks. Okay, great. So we've just lost Urvi now. I think she's offline. Next, I'd like to go to Guhesh and say, Guhesh, so now that we've got a perspective, a global perspective of what's happening in the space from a US perspective and a global perspective, India, Asia, US. So what has changed in terms of the mind of the investor? So the investors, are they keen on investing into AR, VR not as a sector, but as a tool, as Sergey said, because it can cut across many sectors: education, health, events, advertising. I mean, the background that Gary has is a AR. So how has the investor mindset changed during the pandemic, and what do you see what's happening in terms of investments?
I don't think it's changed significantly during the pandemic, except to maybe slow down. But I think what has been AR and VR are actually quite mature in terms of technology right now, correct? I mean, and people have been using AR, for example. I mean, when like what Louis pointed out, which is the Nintendo. Was that what is the name of that game? I forgot. I mean, kids are playing Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go, right? Everyone is jumping around in that all over the place, and I remember it causing accidents all over the place in India, especially.
Right.
The thing was this, right? Which is that technology has been around for a while, and the technology is actually getting more and more and more robust. That's something which I've seen. Both augmented AR, VR, XR, MR, mixed reality, multiple things. Those are there. But I think what is switching right now is the actual use of that technology in solving real life problems, right? So for example, I think Sergey mentioned it, or was it Gary who mentioned it? For example, I have seen companies that are actually creating AR toolkits that actually offer on-the-job training to people, right? And this is at on-the-job training
Right.
for people, right? Let's take someone like, say, the guy who comes over to your place to set up a cable modem, or a DTH modem, that kind of stuff, right? The problem that happens is the amount of training that these people need to go through in the beginning is quite significant. And these are people who, are not really the most devoted in terms of sticking around in a particular job. So they'll, so there is a lot of churn that happens as far as employees are concerned, right? If you are retaining a person for a certain amount of time, and providing that person with enormous amounts of training, that's sunk cost as far as the company is concerned. So I have seen companies that have actually startups that have come up with products that overlay onto an app on your phone. What you do is you take a look at the modem that you need to install, or the cable modem that you need to install over there. Point the app at that device over there. On the screen, it automatically pops up stuff that says that, see that yellow colored cable, you have to plug it in into this. See the blue colored cable, you have to plug it in into this. Now switch on this button over there, and then the guy points it out over there, and it actually moves the person to saying that, look, now point the phone at the top, press this button over there, and it's actually following this thing, very similar to a Google Maps kind of an interface, right? Which is when you are driving along, and if you want to see the name of a building, you actually point your phone over there, and Google Maps automatically overlays some of those specific images onto your phone itself and tells you that is the building that you're approaching. Now, those kind of applications, like a training application, which is meant to solve a problem which an organization faces, which is how is it that you can cut down the cost of training, especially at a time when people are in a perpetual churn kind of a thing over there, especially when it comes to blue collar workers. Those are the kind of products that people are getting ready to invest in, provided they start showing traction. Perhaps earlier, maybe I remember about a couple of years ago, there was a company that was working on creating a generic VR platform on the basis of which anyone could go ahead and create their own VR videos.
Right.
About 2 years back, and that was pure toolkit kind of a thing, right? And they, the applications were far and wide. You could use it in real estate, you could use it in education, you could use it in gaming, or whatever. It's the kind of thing that they were talking about. I remember that they raised close to about $1 million at that point in time, 2 years ago, right? But if there is a company that is working on pure technology plays at this point in time, saying that, look, this is a generic technology play, I personally think that investors are going to be a little shy of making investments in these kind of cases right now, unless there's a very specific use case and unless there is some demonstrated traction. I think AR and VR has reached that level of maturity where people are saying that, look, if it is solving a real problem and if there are real paying customers for this, then we'd be willing to look at this. And then again, the usual questions that fall in: how big is the market? How scalable is the company? Yada yada yada. That's the typical thing.
Yeah, I think some great insights. As long as there's traction and there's a real use case, then yes, the investors will be interested, as per Guhesh. Great points. In terms of workplace, in terms of training, so do you think this is going to be the norm going forward, now that we understand the benefits of the technology, and obviously there are a lot of, as you rightly said, job losses and everything? So do you think Gary or Guhesh can add on to that? Because he's obviously written an article on Forbes regarding AR VR in the workplace. So do you think this is going to be the future of work?
I mean, there's no question about it, right? We're already there. So, I mean, here we are, right? Look at, I've got actually, that's a real picture of my neighbor's swimming pool.
Okay.
So, but that's here we are in that life. It has happened now. Google Expeditions. So as I said, in terms of workplace for teachers, imagine being able to take a kid and transcend them to the time of dinosaurs, or take them to Renaissance art. And just with a moment, just by putting on that set, it doesn't matter where you are. So in terms of the workplace, absolutely, because training, think about the training that could be done. If I'm a doctor and I need to be able to see patients, imagine how I can feel closer to that experience. So and we're using it today in Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook. I mean, it's already penetrated our lives. It's not like if it's going to come, it's already here. So then when you combine artificial intelligence, deep AI, unsupervised AI, the VR, MR, XR, AR, I mean, it changes everything. So what does it help? It helps for training. HoloLens 2. There was just a major contract signed with the US government for almost $500 million for training using HoloLens 2, Microsoft. So it's already here. The thing is, what's going to happen, so if we don't accept it, I encourage all your listeners that these technologies, there's going to be two people on this planet, the ones that know and have the knowledge and use the technologies, and the ones that don't. And it's happening very, very quickly. This is like, look at what happened in the last 7-8 months with the pandemic, right?
Right.
So we need to get on board. Now, companies that don't use those technologies are going to be on the outside looking in. It'll happen very quickly. The VR environment's grown at about 38% per year, and probably more now because of the pandemic. I'm looking at the last figures that I had seen, but now is the time. It is for training, there's a company called Spatial for workplaces, right? Spatial is a company that allows you to work in a virtual workspace, making it closer to share documents and videos, et cetera, in a VR world.
Right. Great. I mean, that's the future of work, guys. For startups who are not yet ventured into AR, VR, please look into it. If you are, I mean, in any of these training sectors or education sectors, it's a great product to have besides your core product. Thank you so much, Gary. I'd like to move to Lewis for his insights now regarding investments and sort of what's evolving during the pandemic.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll stick on the AR topic because I think it's very important. Guhesh made some points on mobile. The reality is, the reality, and that you have probably about 1.5 billion, from what I understand, of mobile devices that are AR capable. So they exist right now. So Google is doing a lot of things in that arena. Years ago, I'm going to say maybe 7 years ago, in New York, Corning had an ambitious vision for the future. They call it the future of glass, the house of glass, where augmented reality was installed, and you were able to see all the possibilities. And I was speaking to them at the time because they were dealing with fiber optic cable and everything else. And this is their vision. And I believe that when you can conceive it, it can be achieved. It can happen. Just like with movies, you have Hollywood producers, directors, they produce movies, they have these ideas and they put them out there. What winds up happening is that you have the ability to create it. The mind can create anything. So I think that you're going to have more augmented reality implemented from education across the board. And again, it's cost effective stuff, and the investments in that space. And I always go back to AI because AI is the foundation, because if you go and you build, as Sergey was saying, with AR companies, and you build this and you don't have the foundation, you're building on quicksand, it's going to collapse. I'd rather be the foundation, because the foundation lasts, and you are adding prongs for people to build their companies up, but you have the foundation. This is why Amazon's AWS, they have the foundation for a lot of things, and you need them, or these companies need them, that they're dependent on them to do these things. And when virtual reality does start to really expand, because when it happens, it's game over, it's game changed. Okay, and 5G is going to help that, and Gary has a lot of great input on that, and investors and entrepreneurs should listen to what he has to say. They call him the king of AI, the godfather of things. He's going to come on this show with a tuxedo and a flower and the hat and everything next time, I think. What do you think, Gary?
I love to see him like that.
It could be. I mean, I'm open.
Oh, geez. Okay, great. Thanks, Ronaldo. Okay, Sergey, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, great. Because you're in a cafe, I guess it's a bit noisy, I guess. Okay, I understand that. So what's your thoughts and insights about what we just spoke about AI? What about blockchain? I mean, obviously we're talking about technology and the applications of the technology. So AI has a very big application in terms of AR, VR, and that we just heard from Gary and Lewis. What about other technologies?
Well, for the blockchain, I think we experienced the same thing I said about AR, VR, right? So for the blockchain, everyone used the technology some time ago. They used it just for the sake of technology itself, right? Not for the specific product, right?
Right.
So if we think about other technologies that kind of interest, I mean, being investors, like I said, we are currently looking at a lot of work tech and remote tech because we still think there is a lot of untapped potential there, even with current abundance of a lot of online technologies to help you better doing remote jobs and hire personnel, whatever it is. It's currently there are a lot more untapped potential, especially in developing markets.
Right.
But if we also look at the investment trends, and I kind of wonder what my fellow VCs will say about it, because there are currently great interest in SPACs, which is special purpose acquisition companies. Yeah, I just recently commented on Peter Thiel's recent development in this case. The SPACs raising a huge amount of money, but we kind of know that SPACs are basically they built just to make 1-2 investments, very targeted, usually acquire a huge stake in the company, and that's it. So with this in mind, there is a lot of potential for the companies to get to instead to getting to Series C or D or getting to IPOs, just to get funded, be funded through the SPACs. So I wonder what my fellow VCs thinks about that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, we open the floor for answers from other. Yeah,
I have something to say about it. Look, special acquisition companies, they've been around for a while. Basically, they're a crazy reverse merger that transpires. The difference between them and other types of reverse mergers is that these companies, they're publicly traded, they're clean, no financial issues, no legal issues, and the lead. The fund manager that creates this, basically they're targeting, as Sergey said, usually from what I see, they're targeting one deal. They're looking for that one deal to make that one investment so they can go and have that company reverse into it, become publicly traded. And that's a good way to do it if you have that mature company that's ready to go. Not so much mature that you've been around for a zillion years, but enough that you can have sustainable growth and you have scalability. And I think SPACs are being they're becoming more the norm now. You have a lot of them coming out. And what I fear is just like with the reverse merger boom of the 90s, basically you're going to have too many companies just popping out and investors they're investing in blank check companies. They don't really know what's happening. They're saying, here, we trust you, you've been successful, here goes our money. Look at Social Capital. Chapman is doing this on the regular, and he's getting a lot of these companies, he's throwing them public. I think he just did 2 of them recently. So we're going to see a lot more of that coming about, and it's going to be very interesting. But I think it's going to give a lot of opportunity to VCs to get involved in these companies early on, as they go for the $1 billion deal later.
Right, excellent. Sorry, Gary, also SPAC. I mean, I would like to know about your thoughts. Like it's a blank check company. I mean, I'm really intrigued to know what's your insights in that.
Well, I'm not the expert on that. I know how to build companies.
Okay.
I know how to do IPOs of companies. And when it comes to, these interesting we've done it before, but I'm not a guru at it. I mean, I leave that to Lewis and Sergey. It's just not, my thing is to take them I'm the kind of guy gets in, builds them up, gets them out, does the M&A activity, does the IPO, that kind of thing. But I'm not into some of the other things. So I don't want to tell you BS.
All right. Thank you, Gary.
Mm-hmm.
Sergey, Do you like to
Yeah,
say something?
we've seen a huge interest actually from investors. I mean, that's the thing with trends, right? When there is a trend about blockchain, it's kind of hard to find. Uh, it's kind of hard to find an investor that's not asking you, "Are you doing blockchain? Are you invest in blockchain?" Because everyone does that, right?
Right.
So if you speak just about, sorry, there's some background noise. Yeah. Um, can you still hear me, Cloud and Leah?
Yes,
Loud and
very
clear.
clear.
Yeah.
Very clear.
Okay. So yes, with we've seen from investors now a lot of interest in SPACs. So that's why, because they see these news, $500 million raised, $600 million raised, so they want to jump in on this trend.
Right.
And that's why we've already helping a couple of our investors establish a specs. But the problem with the specs is not just the raising the money, is have a clear target what you're going to acquire, because basically you have to pinpoint. um, you currently it's basically you're hunting down these 1-2 companies that you're gonna have a major stake in them, because as a rule of thumb, at least 80% of the funds based in SPAC need to be spent on one company. So that's a good thing to skip the M&As and IPOs, and I think I see there is a huge potential for Southeast Asia, because currently, a huge trend in US, but for Southeast Asia, the people are kind of so reluctant about SPACs. But we see this as an interesting investment alternative and a good way, when you have these follow-up investments. So you kind of show this your startups that are currently at Series B or C, and are thinking, in need of raising more money. Then you can direct them and help them raise the money through specs, which is a good thing.
Yeah, sorry, Sergey, I just missed that point. So you see a lot of potential in Southeast Asia markets now? Do you see a lot of interest?
I see, yes, I see there is a lot of interest from private investors in Southeast Asia that want to jump into spec trend. And yes, so basically, yeah, that will be just Hong Kong or Singaporean based companies, right? Um, so because there are some companies in Southeast Asia which are currently Series C or D stage that are interested, that are good candidate for to be acquired through SPACs. So yes, there is a interest from high net worth individuals in Southeast Asia to invest their money into SPACs and to get the stake. Yeah, there is a
Great.
trend.
Good to know. Thank you so much, Sergey, for adding that on. Louis, yes.
Can I add something onto that? So people understand a SPAC is different than your, a reverse merger that's been going on for some time. You have companies, Southeast Asia, globally, that have been involved in reverse mergers. They've been on the OTCQB and so on and so forth. Even on the Nasdaq or on the New York Stock Exchange, doing reverse mergers to go public. They're trying to save money. They're trying to do this stuff, but the problem is you have to know what you're getting involved with. The legal repercussions, the financial repercussions. You don't know the history of the company. SPACs are clean. And I have to stress that they're clean. And it's a great vehicle. It's a great option to an IPO, a great option to a direct listing, because you're getting money. You're getting a big flush of money. You can do what you need to do, but you're giving up a big chunk of your company. So there's a trade-off there too. But again, as I said, it's going to give a lot of opportunity for VCs to actually grow these companies and bring them to that point. So if they wanted to do a SPAC or get involved with that, they'll have that opportunity. And I've done a
Great.
lot of reverse mergers in my career, so I know a lot about that.
I would be greatly interested. That's the trend I'm currently looking at. I'm curious if it's going to raise. If there will be a blank check SPACs that act as a bit of a VCs, because what I recently seen is actually SPAC fund that invest in SPACs. They already raised like 100 million, I think. So that's an interesting trend, because if you just look at them at they're aiming at acquiring 1-2 major stakes, that's one thing. But what if they could be an interesting vehicle for a bit of a VC type and investing in couple companies? That's like opens a completely different perspective to the view.
We will have to talk someday, Sergey, and go over that.
Yeah, I think we can have a specific panel on SPACs to discuss more and brainstorm more on that. Thank you both. Okay, Guhesh just messaged me about the augmented reality tools to make online education more convenient in India. So Guhesh, can you just share this example with our audience and more about the startup?
This is not a startup that's doing this, right? The fact is this, which is that there are plenty of companies that have generated the tools. Now, the link that I have sent on the chat over here is about this school teacher in rural India,
right,
who is using tools that are available on his phone to be able to make VR content, which he's using to teach his school kids, his classes. So if you just take a look at that, he's taking a class on the solar system, right? He actually brings up the sun. I think there are pictures over there in that article that I've shared with you. There are planets that are going around that. He can point at those planets and he can say that, look, this is Mercury, this is Venus, this is Earth, and then he can blow up Earth and then he can shrink it back and then take it out to the other thing. The point that I'm making is this, which is that this is not something that has been done by a tech company. This content has been created by literally a kindergarten level school teacher in rural India. And I cannot stress this point more. Rural India does not have the best of teachers. Now, the point is this, which is that if tech like this is available for people to be able to create their own content, individuals to create their own content, can you imagine the kind of pressure that this is going to put on the companies, on the startups that are actually trying to create technology for other people to use? That's a point that I really wanted to make, right? For startups to get, no one is going to fund this school teacher. I mean, well, he might get a grant from someone. No one's going to fund the school teacher because that's all that he's done. He's created some content to be able to teach, his 30, 40 kids.
He's creating an impact, I think, in a society.
He's creating a huge impact, right?
Yeah.
The point is this, which is that for a startup to be able to create this kind of technology, which is now being used by mass utilization, I just want you to take a look back in terms of the kind of pressure or the kind of advanced technology that the startup should be working on for them to be able to attract investments. So that's a point that I'm making. Whereas earlier, you could have got away with saying that, hey, you know what, here's some cool stuff that I've done with VR, or here's some cool stuff that I've done with AR. It's no longer enough. Today, investors are increasingly looking out at saying that, look, what is the kind of adoption that this thing is promising right now? Okay. What are the kind of use cases that this technology can actually generate? So for example, there's one use case that I came across of VR actually coming up in shipping. When we work with Maersk, Maersk is the shipping company. When we work with Maersk, and they were saying that, look, one of the problems that we face is that when we are shipping hazardous goods, we really want to try and make sure that they are packed properly at the point of origin. And we cannot do that using just static, flat photographs. Is there someone who's actually working on methods by which you can actually track, saying that, look, how is this packed? What's the depth perception in that? How far is this chemical packed away from another chemical, or whatever, those kind of things over there. Now, those are the kind of use cases that people are asking for, and those are the kind of use cases that customers are willing to pay for. The more such use cases that the startup is able to attract, or the bigger the market that the startup is able to go after, I think that's where the funds follow. That is the piece that I'm seeing missing in AR VR companies today, at least in India. There's plenty of potential use case. Hey, you know what? Putting up a good background on like what Gary's done right now is something which is a nice, cool thing to do, right? But do we really pay for something like this in the background? No, it's just something that we say that, look, let me just go ahead and get that. I mean, it's a nice to have thing, right? But if there's a startup that is just generating backgrounds for you to start using over there, I wonder how many live customers they would be able to get for that. So the point that I'm making over here is AR and VR, now the startups have to start getting serious and start really looking at what are the kind of real life use cases that they can go after. That's, I think, is what's the important part out here.
Great points, Gwesh. I have to agree. I mean, as long as you're solving a problem, then technology, AI, blockchain, AR, VR makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to solve a problem. Thank you so much for adding that on. So, Gary, talking about talent, AI, because you obviously have so much experience building companies, how easy or difficult it is to get AI talent to build AR, VR startup right now, or a startup who's trying to pivot from a traditional technology company to using AI for the AR VR business?
Well, it's not easy, but you got to know where to look. So where are those talents located? And Sonny, I talk about the KISS principle all the time. Keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yeah.
So where do those talents lie? Well, you got to find where there's great science and math expertise.
Right.
And so I look in places like Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia.
Right.
And then I look at places like Novosibirsk and Saratov and places where those kind of skill sets have been nurtured. And those are the kind of places that I go for. And the other thing is, so I wrote another article in Forbes called, I talk about intergenerational, multicultural, regionally diverse, decentralized teams. And the reason I'm saying that is because what you want to do is find people that are incredible technologists, like Click Software, the company that was sold for 1.3 billion. I was on the original team of it. They were algorithmic mathematicians from Israel. Came over to Silicon Valley. We did an IPO on NASDAQ, and the rest is history. Salesforce bought 13 months ago the company. So you got to look for where those talents are. They're in Israel. You got to look also where the costs are. You don't want to pay, from my standpoint, the challenge is when you bring somebody to Silicon Valley, as soon as you bring them over, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, poach them, right? And they offer 3 times as much. So if you're paying them 150, 200,000, they're offered double or 3 times as much with options and all. They could make $1 million actually. So what you want to do is find out where people are comfortable as a team, find that team, nurture that team, keep them wherever they are, have your office in Silicon Valley or in Singapore, whatever, but use that decentralized approach and they're there. There's no question. The thing is, most people don't understand artificial intelligence. And so if you ask them really, what is it? Like, tell me a little bit about technically what it is, like ladder networks or variational autoencoders or unsupervised. They don't know. There's zero. Or machine learning. So what you have to do is you have to learn how to ask the right questions too, or you're gonna be overpaying for something that doesn't right.
Right. Thank you, Gary, because I've got a lot of founders who have actually told me that they have a big challenge in finding the right talent when it comes to AI, basically the developers. And there's a lot of challenge, and when they can say a lot of things in their CV, they can write a lot of things on the CV, but when it comes to really getting hands-on with the job, that's where things go wrong. So I think those founders who are listening to Gary today, he just mentioned a few names, and please follow the decentralized model, right? That's the right approach.
I mean, this is the way, because of this whole digital transformation, think about it. This is the most incredible time. Now we are, with Zoom and the technologies, we've got the opportunity to really democratize the opportunity, which I talked about before. Now the key is for those startups to use intergenerational teams. What I mean by that is teams that have experience, 20, 30, 40 years worth of experience. So the former COO of Walmart is on the board of my company, right? Bill Reichert, Guy Kawasaki's partner, just a lot of, we look for people that have experience and the contacts. Because now, if you are, let's say you're in Singapore and you want to come out to Silicon Valley, you want to come to London, you need to have people that have connections that are trusted, or you're never going to be able to do it because it's all about trust. So if you build those teams right, it's great having the young startup, 22 years old, 18 years old, 25, but you also need to have some gray hair to say, listen, I've been through it 15 times. There's certain things you want to do and certain things you don't want to do. And oh, by the way, if you want to go to the CEO of Target in the US, we happen to know him. Or, you need to go out to the Valley to Jensen at NVIDIA, happen to know him. You need those kind of relationships, or it's going to take you forever because it's hard.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gary, for that. And you have a right kind of balance. The founders, if you're building a team, you can have young and, as Gary said, people with a lot of experience and gray hair.
Great. And the other thing is culturally diverse. I have one of the board members of the NAACP, which is the number one group of blacks in the world. It was started by Martin Luther King. And the reason I do it is because you need different viewpoints. You need black, white, female. It doesn't matter. You need different viewpoints to be able to make sure your product or service is really fit. And
Right.
having that diversity, it's proven, really helps the company grow a lot faster because you get different viewpoints.
Absolutely, Gary. Startups who are listening to Gary, please, this is a very vital key point, especially in these times now. Thank you, Gary, for that.
Sure.
So, okay, we are right on time. I'd like to take some closing remarks. Like Sergey, you just joined us for the first time, like in this Asia panel. So, closing remarks for the session today.
Okay, so for the closing remarks, I would say if we focus on the AR, VR, please keep in mind how your company will grow to. Well, we usually invest in companies that have a potential to be a billion-dollar company, right? So if we speak about AR, VR, always think that there is only two ways. It's either become profitable by itself, and it's a one thing, or another, then it has a potential to serve that much customers and that many countries that it becomes very interesting and tempting for investors to join in, right? So if we look at the other countries, think what countries you could penetrate if you established in Singapore. Think even beyond the Southeast Asia, because Southeast Asia has great coverage. You know, there are a lot of people, but very actually diverse markets. It's not like one country, right? But you need to think outside to also penetrate the countries with a higher average revenue per user, or alternatively with a lot more corporates that are ready to integrate your technologies. Because with VR and AR, you always need to keep in mind what corporates or what big company is going to use your technology. It's either people or business, but usually it's more business targeted, right? Advertisements, all this kind of stuff. So with this more clear vision in mind, this is your proposal will be much more interesting for investors to jump in.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Sergey, for those insights. Next, I would like to ask Guhesh for his closing remarks, please.
Hey, once again, Sunny, thanks a ton for having me over. This is, really, really useful. Pleasure to meet all of you. To the startups, I specifically have something to say at this point in time, right? Which is, try to figure out how is it that you can actually create a product which can rapidly scale. I mean, this is one of the things that I've seen that startups, especially in cutting edge technologies like say AI or in ML or even in, well, AR VR is not cutting edge at this point in time, but of course the usage is, I think, ramping up pretty fast. Work on products or services, or specifically products that potentially show the ability to replicate and scale, right? I mean, you find one customer, the next week you find 10, the third week you find 500 very rapidly. That's one of the key things that we always look for. Finding, and I'm going to add a little bit to what Sergey was talking about. We also make investments primarily in early stage companies, and we lead all the way up to Series A once again. And the thing that we look for is, unlike companies it's always nice to have a company that shows the potential to be a unicorn, but the reality is that it doesn't always happen. We are perfectly happy to start looking at companies that show a great team, that show great work ethics. That's the second piece. And third, in terms of a product market fit that actually has the potential to be able to replicate it and scale very, very quickly. These are the three things that we really look for. So if there are any of you over there who think that they have something like this, please feel free to reach out to me.
Excellent. Guhesh, thank you so much for those points. The startups who are listening to our show today, who are tuned in, please please reach out to Guhesh if you cover these three points.
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's always much faster than trying to figure out what my email is or my phone number is. I don't pick up my phone pretty often. So just connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. We can help facilitate that as well, because on our website you are already there featured as an investor, so we can help facilitate that. So what's your feedback about VCTV, Guhesh? My next question in continuation with that.
I think it's fascinating. One feedback. It's great to meet up with people like Louis and Sergey and Gary, and you, of course, Sunny, all the time. But it'll be good. I mean, I don't know if we can do this, but it'll be great to receive audience questions at some point in time.
Right.
Even if it's post the program, it'll always be good, because that gives me an idea in terms of what's the kind of feedback or what are the kind of questions that people are asking. Otherwise, it feels that we're just speaking into a vacuum without any response coming back from the other side.
Okay, good point to be noted, and I'm going to feed this back to my support team. Thank you so much, Guhesh. Sergey, I actually didn't ask you this question. What's your feedback about the VCTV?
I think this is like a great initiative. My feedback is very positive about, having great hosts of VCTV. So it's like a huge plus. So I think, well, we might, yes, there was a right feedback that we need to have some, questions from our viewers. That would be great. I would also think that would be nice if we might add some, additional topics, because currently VCTV covers, investments, VR, ER, work tech. But for some viewers, I think it might seem sometimes maybe they will think that we will just repeat ourselves, right, with a couple of times. So they might think that there's like the same topic. So it's been already covered like a month ago, but they're actually different. So we might maybe throw a bit more or discuss. Maybe my idea would be discuss the hot topics right now that happens in the mergers, acquisitions, recent startups that just been funded. What are our thoughts? Why are they being funded? Why it's been so popular? Like I said, I mean, I've dropped the specs simply because it's currently a very hot topic in the media, like it was a week ago. Every media wrote about it. Very happy. So we might jump on this just to cover the hot topics as well.
A very good feedback, Sergey. My team is actually also watching this, and I'm going to feed them back again. Thank you so much. So, Louis, what's your closing remarks for the show?
Oh, it's my turn. All right. Closing remarks. Just, anyone that's venturing in, any entrepreneur that's venturing into AR, blockchain, having these standalone situations, you're limiting yourself. If you have blockchain and AR powered solutions, a lot more helpful. Like we have an e-signature document management system that's blockchain enabled, and you don't have a lot of stuff like that out there. We incorporate blockchain into what we're doing, and it's the most in my opinion, the most comprehensive, platform that's out there, and it's not known as it's going to be. So if you do things like that and you add on to it, you bring value. And just to echo what everyone said on the show, yeah, having a Q&A is pretty cool. Changing the topics is great. When Sergey brought up SPACs, I can talk about that all day. Reverse mergers, anything to do with M&A, investment banking, things like that. A lot of information can flow that can be helpful to the viewers. Yeah. So if you create topics like that, and you have the technology, but you also have the finance part of it, you're going to get a lot more feedback, a lot more people, investors looking at it, because you're connecting with them a lot more. Giving them more information than what they've heard a month ago or 2 weeks ago or last year. You're giving them something of today. That's why I love talking about topics for now. So so if they incorporate that, I think we will have this show be robust across the board, and it'll grow by leaps and bounds. But I thank you guys for having it. Great platform. VCTV is still growing, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Louis. Excellent feedback, very consistent feedback from all the three speakers. And obviously, I'm going to feed this back to my team. Thank you. Last but not least, Gary, what's your closing remarks for the show and obviously the feedback about VCTV?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so for all the startups that are out there, make sure you do customer development. What you don't want to do is create something that people don't want to buy and spend a lot of time and energy. And I see it happen time and time again. They over-engineer the product. Make sure you have an MVP and go out. What I did with my company, Eva, is actually my partner David and I, Yang, would actually walk down the streets in Palo Alto, and we go into cafes and interview people, taking an iPhone, put it on a stand, show them what we had. You know, we would go down through a PowerPoint presentation, you know, and get the remarks. And it was invaluable. And it really helped my technical folks too, my technical team, to make sure that the product was the right fit for that customer. And it gave them insight on what the people really want. And so it guided them without having to push them. I didn't have to say, you're going to do it this way. It's what the customers wanted. And, you know, our business at the beginning of the pandemic is up 38x. So we know that what we're doing is working, but go out and ask those questions. A lot of companies go out of business because they over-engineer it, waste their time and waste their money. The other thing, and this is the greatest time, you know, I say it time and time again, AI is the new electricity. Our lives are going to fundamentally change over the next 20 to 30 years. So be part of that revolution. Surf the wave. Don't get crushed by it. In terms of VCT, this is a great platform. It's a right platform at the right place at the right time to be able to give knowledge to people that otherwise wouldn't be able to get it. And it's real time every day. I like the idea, by the way, of topics. Even though there's repetition, it's a good thing because times are changing that fast. So there's always new things coming out. So it's really good job. And Sunny, you're incredible. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you. Thank you for those fabulous words and the feedback. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate all of your time that you give to VCTV, especially the regular speaker like Louis, Gary, Sergey. You know, I really appreciate your time. VCTV is VCTV because of you all. I mean, obviously people are watching you all speak, right? The kind of knowledge that you share, kind of insights that you bring to the table. So I really thank you again. For those viewers who are watching us today and they want more content, more topics, you can go on www.latoken.com/events and you can see what's next coming in the few months. So we cover topics, a variety of different topics, and we're going to try to factor in all those new topics, the hot topics that Sergey mentioned and Luis added as well in our coming sessions. So till then, please stay connected, stay safe, and let's get rocking. Thank you so much and have a great day, great evening.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you all. Gary,
Thank you.
Louis,
Bye.
Sergey.